Hello everyone, welcome to Decode ITES. This is a single learning platform for multiple IT infrastructure technologies. Do like, share and subscribe our channel to never miss out our videos. Let's continue with the learning. Let's have a small introduction of myself. My name is Prince Garg. I'm having 3+ years of work experience and worked on Red Hat, VMware, Windows, Google Cloud, PowerShell, Python and Bash scripting. Kindly follow us on Facebook, Insta, LinkedIn, and reach out to us on itesfund.com. Welcome back to the learning series of Linux 8 with Decode ITS. In this lesson, we will continue with the previous lesson content like the file ownership and permissions. In this lesson, I will teach you how to work with file ownership and permissions in the Linux environment. Let's continue. First thing is changing security permissions. The command we use to change the security permissions on files is called chmod, which stands for changing mode. Because the 9 security characters are collectively called as the security mode of the file. What are the 9 characters? As we have already discussed in our previous lesson, like every user, group and others are having read, write and execute type of permissions. So read, write, execute for all 3 users, then it contains total 9 characters. The first argument we give to the chmod command is ugo. Like we use U for user, G for group and O for others. We can also use a combination of them, ugo. This specifies which of the 3 groups we want to modify. After using this, a plus is used for adding, a minus is used for removing, and is equal to is used for assigning a permission. Then we specify the permission R, W or X we want to change. Here also we can use a combination of RWX. This specifies which of the 3 permissions RWX we want to modify. We can use commands to modify more permissions, and also finally the name of the file whose permission we are changing. Let's take a look at it. If we walk on with the example, and if we want to give execute permission to the word other for file xyz.txt, we would start by typing chmod o, like O is for others. Now we would type a plus to say that we are adding a permission, chmod o plus. Then we would type an X to say that we are adding execute permission, chmod o plus X. Finally, specify which file we are changing, like the chmod o plus X xyz.txt. We can also change multiple permissions at once. For example, if we want to take all permissions away from everyone, we would type chmod ugo minus rwx xyz.txt. This is for user, group and others, and we are removing read, write and execute permissions for all of them. The code above revokes all the read, write and execute permission from all user, group and others for the file xyz.txt. Another example can be chmod user group ug plus rw, means read write. And the second thing is o minus x, like we are removing the execute permission from others for the file abc.mp4. The code above adds read write permission to both user, group and owner, and revokes execute permission from others for the file abc.mp4. Something like this. Chmod ug is equal to rx o plus r abc.c. It assigns read and execute permission to both user and group, and read permission to others for a file on the abc.c. There can be numerous combinations of the file permission we can invoke, revoke, and assign. An interesting thing is the absolute mode, which we also say as numeric mode. In this mode, file permissions are not represented as characters, but a 3-digit octal number. We are having total 8 numbers from 0 to 7. If you look at the table, the 0 number is having the permission type 0 and the symbol is dash dash dash. The number 1 is having only execute permission to the others only. 2 is for granting the right permission to the group. 3 is used like in the permission type is 11 or you can say 011 is for write and execute permission for group and others respectively. 4. 100 which is for providing the read permission to the owner or we can say the user. 5. 101 this is to provide read permission to the user and execute permission to the others. You can also add that permission type. Like for the fifth, if you can see, it's 101. So if we add fourth and first, what we can see? We can see that it's providing read permission to the user and execute permission to the to all other users. Let's walk through a practical overview session of them, and I hope you will understand it better. Let's take an example of changing ownership and permissions. First, let's go to the root directory and create a file named xyz.com, or you can say xyz.txt. So now we are having the file. Let's do a ls-l on xyz.txt. So you can see that it's the user is having read write permission and the groups are having read permission only and others are having read permission only. So for changing the ownership and permissions, we would use chmod. O means for others, and plus like we want to provide the execute permission, so we would type x and then xyz.txt. If we look out the ls-l result on xyz.txt, we can see that others are now having read and execute permissions. Okay, so if we would like to grant permissions to user group or group others or user and others, whichever you can say, the multiple granting of permissions, then we would use chmod ugo, let's example like a user group and owner, and we want to remove read write and execute permission. The minus means to decrease the permission set or remove the permissions. And let's provide the file name xyz.txt. And if we do ls-l over xyz.txt, we can see that all the permissions are removed now. Another example can be like this: chmod user group to be having an additional permission of read write, and the comma you can use to separate two permission sets. Others we can say will have execute permission only to the file xyz.txt. And if we do ls-l over xyz.txt, we can see that user and groups are now having read write permission and others are having execute permissions now. Let's take an example of few more scenarios, like using the octal numbers. Let's remove all the permissions from xyz.txt. Okay. Now, if we can see that xyz.txt is not having any set of permissions. And if we do chmod user group owner plus read write execute, and then we provide the file name, sorry, we can see that user group and others are now having read write execute permissions. Let's remove the permissions now again. Okay, you can see that this file is not having any blended permissions. Now, for the binary numbers, if we use chmod 777 as we have seen in the sheet which I have shared with you over the presentation, so xyz.txt, this means the same because for the 7 octal number, it means that we are providing read, write, and execute permissions. So that's all for modifying the permission sets and the ownership of the files. I hope you have understood well, and if you are having any queries related to this topic or any another topic, you can just reach out to us on Decode ITS or drop a comment section over here. Thanks for watching. Do like, share, and comment our videos. Also subscribe to our channel.